For all the best boxing content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and punch that bell for notifications.
Ladies and gentlemen, Broadway Boxing continues, and it is being brought to you by DiBella Entertainment, along with their great sponsors, Nulio.com, Manfredi Auto Group, and Everlast. Our 3 judges assigned, scoring on a 10-point must system, will be Kevin Morgan, Robert Perez, and John Signorelli. When the bell rings, our referee in charge, the third man in the ring, will be Gary Rosado. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we continue with 8 rounds of boxing in the welterweight division. Introducing you first to my right, fighting tonight out of the blue corner. He's wearing blue, white, and red, and weighed in at 147 pounds. Coming to us from Manatí, Puerto Rico, he brings a professional record of 13 wins, 10 defeats, 3 draws, with 10 of his 13 wins coming by way of knockout. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Eric La Maquina Cruz. And his opponent across the ring, fighting tonight out of the red corner. He's wearing blue, red, and silver, and weighed in at 141 pounds. Hailing from Brooklyn, New York, he has a professional record of 19 wins, just 1 defeat, with 3 wins coming by way of knockout. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Gabriel Tito Bracero.
As Tito's promoter, I don't like to see the size difference because I'm looking at these guys and they probably gained a lot of weight since the weigh-in.
Oh, he definitely has. You can see it.
You can see it. I mean, I'd say that the weight discrepancy is well in excess of what it was at the weigh-in.
At all times, and most importantly, obey my commands at all times. Touch gloves, bang at the bell.
And one thing, of course, Tito Bracero getting ready to take on Eric Cruz. I'm kind of looking at the last few times we've seen Tito Bracero, he's been prone to cuts. The last time it was about 3 of them. There was a headbutt, and he had a nasty cut. Time before that against Chop Corley. Another, again, nasty cut.
Be interesting to see if he cuts in this fight.
Another reason I find this an interesting matchup, Tito Bracero is consistent with his weight, he's consistent with his preparation, he's consistent with his style in the ring. He fights every round the same. Cruz is a little bit of an unknown here. He's a big puncher. He can be stopped. He's not in the best of shape. You can see he's a little soft around the middle, yet he can whack, and he's got a 6-pound advantage yesterday over Bracero. As Lou suggested, that's probably about a 16-pound advantage now. So how does that play out?
It's definitely a double-digit advantage in weight right now. But so far, Bracero quietly is controlling the fight with a jab from a distance, boxing, moving. Good combination.
Good combination by Tito Bracero. Cruz has 10 losses in his career, 16 wins, but all 16 wins have come by knockout. So if he gets his hands on you, he can hurt you.
We've had Tito on Broadway Boxing, of course, so many times, and we've seen him grow. And the 2 things I've always said about him that make him Tito, consistency and focus. He never loses focus in the ring, and he fights in the pocket every minute of every round.
That's a very key point. He fights in the pocket. Good shot, good right hand.
He just has to remember, especially when you think back on his first loss against Chop Corley, got to move the head.
Absolutely.
Got to move the head. That was the one thing he didn't do, then he did later in that fight.
But going back to fighting the pocket, when you look at a guy's record, he only has 3 knockouts. You tend to think that he's a mover or a runner. And he's absolutely not. He does fight in the pocket. He's a real fighter. He's a boxer puncher, but not a knockout puncher. Good controlled round for Tito in the first round.
Well, I'm sure he's coming into this first round wondering what his opponent is all about because of the weight issue yesterday. And I'll tell you, Eric Cruz looked drained at that weigh-in. He's obviously had more than 24 hours to rehydrate, which does help.
Not very busy, Cruz is not. There's a little body shot by Bracero.
And among the other reasons, as Lou suggested, that Bracero wants a nice measured first round. No buts. He doesn't want to get cut like he was in his last fight in the first round. It's not going to happen as long as he boxes from this kind of distance.
This is the distance he has to fight this fight at, and he's fighting at the perfect distance.
Final seconds of the first round here.
Very good first round.
Yeah, very good.
We talked about Eric Cruz being a big puncher. There was a period last year, 5 consecutive fights, 5 consecutive first-round knockouts. Wow. And keep in mind, those knockouts came in 140 pounds tonight. He's 147, at least officially, and in reality, he's probably closer to 160. Now, whether that size translates into punching power or not remains to be seen. But we know Tito Bracero, if you throw out the Corley fight, he's always shown as an excellent chin.
And you know what? A big weight differential has to translate to something in punching power. I'm sorry, it just is an issue. And that being said, the better, smaller man can often win, but I don't like for their 15, 20-pound weight differentials on the night of the fight. I don't like it.
There's a right hand by Cruz. Bracero comes back with a right to the body, follows it up with a left.
There's a little mouse under the left eye of Bracero, and there haven't been a lot of punches landed by Eric Cruz right now.
Well, if you're Bracero, one of the ways you minimize that size difference is by keeping the fight outside. You don't have your man leaning on you. You don't have him shoving you around. And so far, Bracero's done that very well, but that is one of his strengths as a boxer.
And that's going to serve him well in this fight. He's got to stick to that game.
And his jab thus becomes the most important punch.
And Tito will lean in sometimes when he goes in, and that
he just leaned in when he landed a good right hand, but he left himself a little bit open. Cruz did not take advantage of it.
There's a left jab by Cruz.
Cruz doesn't seem to mind this nice, comfortable pace.
Well, I don't think Cruz intends to win a decision. I don't think that was his game plan. I think he's looking to land a big punch and to find an opening and to, walk through that opening.
Well, he doesn't know how to win a decision. In 29 fights, he's never won a decision.
That's a great point. He's never won a decision, and he's unlikely to do it tonight.
But he also might be fighting at a little bit slower pace because he's worried about his conditioning.
Got a nice left.
There's a good left hook by Bracero.
Nice left hook.
Yeah, backed him up. Coming on the final seconds, last 10 seconds here. You can hear Bracero asking the ref, watch his head. All right, Tito Bracero comes out here in round 3, a little busy.
Triple jab, nice to see.
And it's becoming an epidemic in boxing, fighters coming in over the weight. It did not used to happen as much in the old days. Fighters were more professional, let's be honest about it. And Cruz, all right, I don't know the exact circumstances, but he was way overweight when he took this fight. And if you can't make the weight, don't agree to the fight.
You know what? I think we had 3 fighters on this card who had to shed weight or came in over the weight. So it is an epidemic.
Yeah, and we see it at the top level, too.
You're seeing it at the top level where title fights aren't for titles any longer. I mean, it's amazing what's been happening lately, and I think it is a lack of professionalism. And maybe we got to look at how many weight classes we have also.
Sounds like another sound off.
Bracero, such a measured performance. And, you know, nothing gets you more fatigued than when you're uptight, when you're tense. And Tito Bracero, he couldn't be more relaxed. He might as well be lying on a rooftop with some copper tone on, taking in the sun. That's how relaxed he fights.
Now, this is a really nice performance to see, particularly in the wake of the loss to Corley. You know, he's very measured, very, very calculated, following a game plan, a time he laid out for him. In there with the guy that's the puncher, fighting his fight from a distance, stopping the other guy's offensive output. Nice performance so far.
Because if you look at Cruz, his defense isn't the best. And he looks like he could be somewhat predictable because he's looking for that one big shot.
Right now, he seems too slow in reacting to catch Bracero.
I think Bracero got his attention right there.
He did.
Left, right.
Cruz looks a little bit hurt to me, a little bit unsteady right now.
And Tito Bracero is 31 years old. He can't afford any more chop-chop Corley fights. Even though he came back in that fight, showed tremendous guts, and actually made it a close fight with a big rally after getting dropped a lot. He's 31. He wants to make his move now, and he has to beat Eric Cruz to do that. No more losses for Bracero if he wants to become a world-class 10-round fighter.
Well, Tito wants a shot at the title. That's his dream. In order to get that, he can't slip again.
Right.
See, you don't want to see lunging like that. Not against the bigger guy, not against the guy with knockout power. That's what he has to be careful about. You can't make mistakes like that. Cruz can't capitalize, hasn't been able to. But you don't want to see lunging.
Here's a left hand by Bracero. It connects.
Oh, good shot.
There's another right hand by Bracero. The 1-2 works every time you throw it.
And Lou made a great point last round. 1-2 is a great weapon for Tito, but it's important he doesn't lean too far forward with his body weight when he throws the right hand. He's always going to get for that as a butt in the head.
Absolutely. And the cut is the last thing he wants in this fight.
So this might be the type of fight, Brian, where Tito should say, you know what, I'm going to win all 8 rounds and go home with a decision in my pocket. I'm not going to try to hurt the guy, because it's really very important, both because of the size difference and because of the cuts Tito has suffered recently, for him to keep this fight at a comfortable distance.
I'll be very content as his promoter to see a 7-1, 8-0 decision here. But the way he's fighting right now, unless there's some magic punch landed by Cruz, it's hard to see him in this style of fighting losing a round. You know, I'm also glad it's an 8-round fight, given that size differential. And now, obviously, my promoter's hat on.
There's the right hand by Cruz. Bracero comes right back with a double jab.
Lunging a little bit with the left right there. I would rather, see him to keep his distance, be satisfied to win these rounds.
Well, it seems Bracero could do that, Lou, for a couple of reasons. One is, while Cruz is stepping forward, he's not initiating the action. So Bracero is not only controlling the distance, he's controlling the pace of the fight. And it's a pace he's very comfortable with.
That's a very good point. You really can't ask much more right now of Tito Bracero than what he's doing, given what's in front of him. Very measured performance.
Yeah, well, he has to create the offense, and anytime you have to do that, when you're a natural counterpuncher and you're not a naturally offensive fighter, it's difficult.
It is difficult. Particularly, it's difficult if you're not going to put yourself in danger. And he's done a pretty good job of keeping himself out of danger. But you see right there, Cruz's entire game plan rests on trying to land something big, something lucky, something through an opening.
Where's the future for Tito Bracero, Lou? I think talking with Tommy, I think he said he wanted to try to get in maybe one more fight before the end of the year. And
I'd like to get him one fight before the end of the year, and if he can continue, on this winning streak since the Corley loss, I'd like to get him a shot at one of the top guys at 140, because I think he can compete with just about anybody.
thus far, he's been very impressive. He's dictated the fight. He's put together some combinations. There's a nice left hand.
seems Bracero's getting a little bolder as the rounds mount here.
He is getting bolder, and he's pushing Cruz around more. Cruz is feeling these punches.
He follows it up a good straight right.
Last time I did one of my shows, one of my fighters who remained nameless thought I was a little too objective.
Now you see how relaxed Bracero is there playing with the referee.
How about that?
You know what? He should stay a little bit uptight. Keep doing what he's been doing.
Just like that.
Well, if you didn't know anything about Eric Cruz, you'd say, what's the big deal about him being such a big puncher? He hasn't landed any shots to suggest that he's a big puncher.
Well, you can't knock anyone out unless you throw. And honestly, I'm not counting punches. You probably could count them on both hands because I don't think he's thrown a lot of punches.
Yeah, I bet he's averaging about 30, 35 a round. That's it.
If that.
Where the average for this weight class would be about 60.
Bracero has dictated the fight, and at times has taken the fight to Eric Cruz.
He's a little less active this round, Tito. I think he's taking a round off.
So far, and it's an odd round to take off because he was starting to push Cruz back, as I said before, at the end of round 4.
He connected there with a good 1-2.
See, I don't want to see him load up like that. That's not his game.
Yeah, he tried to catch Cruz by surprise with that lead right there. It is another one. A little more intent on Tito's punches right now.
Cruz, you can see, just stalking, just trying to land that right hand. Missed it.
You know, as he loads up on these punches this round, Tito, he leaves himself a little bit open, even though Cruz hasn't taken advantage of it. I'd rather see him go back to the way he fought the earlier rounds. A little less activity here, a little more effort to throw a wild punch. That's not a good recipe. I don't think Cruz can take advantage of it, but he's giving him opportunity here in this round.
Well, the one thing that's been consistent, and you see it right now, Bracero keeps stepping to the side.
His movements, lateral movements are good.
That's his game.
Yeah, so far this fight, it has been textbook Tito Bracero. Both guys tried to load up there. Bracero with a right hand.
You know, you look at size differentials between fighters, but the old adage, speed kills. Oh, nice shot.
Left.
Very nice left hand by Tito Bracero. Speed does indeed kill, and speed is power.
Speed, and in Bracero's case, also timing.
Comes back with a right hand again, Bracero does.
You know, not for nothing, but Tito Bracero would be a pretty good opponent for Danny Garcia at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, close to Sunset Park.
Yes.
Suggest that to our friends at Golden Boy Promotions. But that would sell some tickets in Brooklyn, and I think Tito Bracero would give a lot of fight to Danny Garcia.
And something tells me Tito would love that fight because there are two belts. Danny Garcia is one of only 4 fighters in boxing who actually hold more than 1 world title.
Well, I can tell you, I'll be making a, God willing, the next couple of rounds go the way I think they will. I'll be making a phone call tomorrow to California.
There's the left hand by Tito Bracero.
Well, about a year and a half ago, Lou matched Tito Bracero against a hotshot amateur who was undefeated named Danny O'Connor on Showboxing. That was almost a shutout, wasn't it? Just
It
about.
was. I mean, Danny wasn't 100% for that fight. I still promote Danny, who's, I think, improved a lot. But that was a terrific performance by Bracero. And Bracero's capable of that kind of boxing. He fights without a lot of mistakes very often. And fighting without a lot of mistakes can negate a lack of punching power. And having, as you said, his timing and his speed, that makes up for a lot.
Cruz missed the right hand. Bracero
made him pay with
the left.
Yep, made him pay with the left.
That goes to the frustration level of Eric Cruz. You can just tell on his face.
Sure can, and he lacks that spark that he needs. Maybe it's not there because of the weight loss. Maybe it's not there because he's just not as good a fighter as Tito. Both of those things have a little bit of truth to them, but there's a spark missing. And again, the heads come together there.
Let's remember when Joshua Clottey fought Manny Pacquiao. Didn't land a lot of punches, but Manny's face at the end of the fight looked like he was in a fight. Cruz has landed very few punches, but you do see a mouse underneath the left eye of Tito. You see a little bit of mark on his face. Because the bigger man, when he does land, is landing with a lot more weight behind him.
Yeah, and Tito just has a history. I mean, we've seen him on Broadway boxing many times overcome cuts. Some guys just get busted up a little more than others. And it's not because Tito gets hit that much, because he doesn't.
No. And he certainly hasn't this fight.
Well, it'll be interesting to see as we approach the last 2 rounds of this fight whether Cruz turns it up a notch, knowing that he can see the end of the tunnel. And he knows he needs a knockout for sure.
And just loaded up there.
Yeah, he was really trying to take him out with that one punch.
He's loading up, trying to throw a right hand.
Oh, good left hand. Tito Bracero brings him up to the ropes. And I think that's probably added why Eric Cruz is so frustrated. I mean, this guy, obviously, Tito Bracero, is a lot quicker. He's probably sitting here thinking, like, I can't believe, number one, I can't connect on this guy. Number two, every time I do load up, I'm getting hit with 2 or 3 punches. Oh, good double jab by Bracero. Follows it up with a right. Another left hand by Bracero.
Bracero seems to be talking to somebody there in the first row, or one of the members of the press.
Here's another double jab by Bracero.
Best word for this performance by Bracero is professional. Very professional performance. Exactly what he needs to do against the guys facing. I think Cruz told us a lot at the weigh-in, you know, about what was going to come.
Oh! There's the push.
The push.
That was the push.
Not a lot left in that tank of Cruz, though, to go down like that on that.
Yeah.
One of the best things about Bracero, who again we've seen so many times on Broadway boxing, you have a kid like this who 7.5-year layoff because he had some difficulties outside the ring, and Lou, you brought him back, signed him, and put him on a lot of shows. And I would think from your perspective, no different from our perspective, seeing him advance, seeing him get better is one of the things that's a turn on for you as a promoter.
No, it's terrific. And I mean, look, you have to like Tito Bracero as a person and as a fighter. I mean, you know, people talk about redemption, but here's redemption in action. And he's become a, you know, an upstanding guy, and a guy in his community that's doing good things. And his career, he's really revitalized what was a dead career. That's a long time. You don't get better in prison. And he spent a lot of years away. And you know, he came out a better man in the ring, a better man outside of the ring.
And it also speaks volumes about boxing and what kind of opportunities boxing gives a young man.
Well, I've said this many times, it's a poor kid sport. You know, it's a poor kid sport, and it's a sport of the underdog. And Tito Bracero certainly in life is an underdog. And he's an underdog right now who's making good, which you got to root for and you got to like.
That just goes to show you the relationship between Tommy Gallagher and Tito Bracero. He just gave him a big old kiss coming out of his corner.
Well, as you know, the top man in that corner, and as a trainer, he's got to be very happy with what he's seen tonight. This is really a terrific performance by Bracero, and one that suggests that he might be ready to take on a Danny Garcia. He might be ready for a shot at the top. And he's not going to be an easy fight for anybody at the 140-pound division.
And with that said, Lou, I don't disagree with anything you said, but even though I'm not surprised by Cruz's performance, given the weight issues yesterday, I'm disappointed in his performance.
I
he has
agree.
not shown a lot of fire. He has not shown a lot of effort, and he's thrown very few punches.
But, you know, he said it all at the weigh-in. I mean, and I'll say the same thing about guys fighting on premium cable or pay-per-view that show up and blow the weight off by 5 pounds, 4 pounds, 6 pounds. That's disrespectful to the sport, that's disrespectful to your opponent, and that's disrespectful to the fans. And Cruz didn't do himself any favors in preparing for this fight.
Well, to Bracero's credit, he's done what he's had to do. He didn't have to take the fight. He could have said, you know, this guy's just too big. I'm not going to fight him. He's a dangerous puncher.
Oh, and he could have stumped this fight out. He could have taken it. He could have made this a very boring fight. You made the point earlier, Steve. He's been responsible in this fight for making the action. Cruz is not throwing punches. Bracero's keeping it entertaining by being the aggressor. And that's really, he's more buried. Nice punch. Great left hand.
Yes. I think he almost took it as a challenge. He said, hey, this guy's a big puncher. This guy came in overweight. I'll show him who's going to be the dominant fighter. And look at this, a textbook clinic by Bracero.
Putting his punches together nicely in combination. 1-2, 1-2 hook.
Step out.
That's a little late to be complaining to the ref.
Yeah. Not in the last round. Under a minute here. Final round. That was another body shot with a little push at the end.
A little wink there from Bracero to the announce team. I think he knows he's done a pretty good job.
Now you can see a cut top of the bridge of the nose of Cruz.
Well, the rounds have begun to kind of run together. With Bracero basically winning every round.
Yes.
You know,
it's a shutout.
I can't see any rounds for the other guy. He hasn't thrown enough punches, hasn't connected with enough punches.
Yeah, Cruz had enough, you can tell. He had enough.
He's ready to go home.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, I'm going to go congratulate my fighter because I know who won this one. And it's always a pleasure to work with you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 8 rounds of boxing, we go to the judges' scorecards. Judge Robert Perez scores it 79-73. And both judges, Kevin Morgan and John Signorelli, are in agreement, scoring it exactly the same, 80-72. All in favor of your winner by unanimous decision,